1874 Arizona Territory. Silent, white, and hesitant to be seen, a storm passed across the plains like a grieving widow. Although he respected winter, Elias Boone had never been a big fan. It reduced the land to its most basic elements. Every trail disappeared under the wind's sweeping hand, and trees appeared to be elderly men raising their arms in caution. Elias had left early that morning not to do any chores, but because the home was becoming too quiet. Even after 7 years apart, his wife was constantly mentioned in the rooms. Like feathers falling from the sky, the snow had begun to light up, brushing gently. However, it got deeper by midday, and his boots started to sink. He had almost gone back when he noticed a broken line of prints in the snow. Barefoot, smaller, and not boot tracks. His breathing would have accelerated just from that. Then he noticed the drag print, a faint, stumbling form that resembled a wounded and scuttling deer. His chest constricted with curiosity. He took his time following it, the rifle slung unharmed. The footprints went into a tiny cedar stand that had been hollowed out by the wind. A figure was half buried there. A ripped brown shawl was draped around her. Her right shoulder was coated with blood. She was still breathing, and her foot was flexed at an angle that suggested pain. Her eyes were as piercing with dread and as dark as midnight when he moved forward. Her mouth trembled, cracked, and separated. "Please," she said in a weak English accent, "just kill me fast." Elias remained silent while kneeling next to her. He removed his coat, put it around her, and raised her up like a shattered reed. She didn't argue. He made no inquiries. Then no, he placed her by the fire in the cabin, gave it 3 more logs to eat, and used fresh rags to boil water. As he cleansed her shoulder, she winced but remained silent. Fresh bullet graze, not deep. Her ankle was already swollen, twisted, and worse. Despite her hands shaking too badly to hold the cup, he poured her a little whiskey and let her drink. She never took her eyes off of him, though. Her quiet had an air of defiance. Pride, just held together by breath rather than the quiet of terror. She hesitated when he gave her a slice of cornbread. She then took it carefully, biting and swallowing. Her throat felt as though it hadn't eaten any food in days. He said, "You got a name?" She didn't respond. He refrained from pressing, not that evening. To keep his hands occupied, he sat across the room, slowly cutting into a block of pine with his knife. Like an animal, she observed him, uncertain if the hunter's generosity was bait. The windows were scratched by the wind. Something else, thinner than thread yet substantial, flowed between them as the fire went out. She had a lower fever by morning. The storm had gotten more intense. He grilled the remaining dry meat after boiling snow for water. She remained silent, but he could see her strength beneath the silence when she reached for the tin cup without. Trembling, "You'll tear the tendon clear," he whispered softly as he saw her attempting to stand. She turned to face the fire and remarked, "Better torn than taken." He didn't respond to that. The silence ended on the 3rd day. "Why didn't you touch me?" she finally asked, gazing at the fire. Her voice was harsh and ready to strike, like flint. Elias raised his gaze from the carving. "Not necessary." She made a line with her lips. "All of them do. I am not them." He only said that. That was all he had to say. After observing him for a while, she closed her eyes, in a state more akin to surrender than slumber. He discovered her attempting to braid her hair with one hand that afternoon. He placed his late wife's comb on the windowsill next to her but offered no assistance. Even though it was a slight motion, her eyes lingered on it for a moment before her quivering fingers reached for it. She eventually revealed her name to him that evening. 1 syllable, then stillness once again, Hannah. However, he nodded and replied, "Elias." There was more than snow the following morning. Fresh hoof prints. Elias squinted through the glass of the frost lace. A lone rider came from the town. The deputy McClellan was a man who enjoyed controversy as much as coyotes enjoyed overt takeovers. Before McClellan could knock, Elias emerged onto the porch. He didn't grin. "The weather is bad for a ride," McClellan chuckled. "Saw smoke coming from your chimney? People wanted to know." "I heard that you housed an Apache. She was dying." She was still breathing. Yes, she is. McClellan leaned closer. Do you think people will like that? One of them has received your fire, like smoke. His voice twisted. Could she be a scout? What if everything about this is a trap? Elias did not blink. I'll die warm then. McClellan got into a fight. For a girl? Who doesn't even speak your language? You would jeopardize your ranch. She talks enough. Boone, she said, yes, to you. You now claim her as your own. Elias came down from the veranda. You have no business doing it. McClellan's smile twisted. If you're hiding a savage, that is, the door creaked behind him. Hannah was. Slender and upright as she stood in the picture, her ankles still covered in ripped linen. She looked fearlessly into McClellan's eyes. She claimed that I needed fire. He offered one. McClellan swore under his breath and pivoted his steed. Boone, you'll regret it. They never fail to return. Elias let out a deep breath as the deputy vanished into the snow. Hannah gave him an inscrutable glance. I should have been allowed to freeze. I didn't. After giving one nod, she turned and limped inside. The storm eventually broke that night. However, peace did not follow. Riders were involved. There were 7 of them. At sunset, dark men atop horses are seen cresting the ridge. Number. Discomfort from the conflict. No arms were raised. Nothing but quiet. Elias went outside once again. No coat, no rifle. With her breath caught in her throat, Hannah followed. I recognize that one, she muttered. My uncle is that person. The oldest author got off his horse. Nah, chief. He walked with the composure of someone who has been buried for longer than he has spoken. He first looked at Sahana and then at Elias. He said, You took her in. You are not descended from her. You provided her with warmth even though she was hurt. Elias gave a single nod. I didn't go beyond what a man ought to do. The chief squinted his eyes. The majority of males don't. Hannah took a step forward. I wasn't embarrassed by him. After glancing between them, Chief No said something in Apache. Hannah then turned to listen to Elias' voice. According to him, you have married me. The words were like snow on Elias's skin. Real, cold, and hard to ignore. He responded softly, That's not how we do things here. Neither she nor we nodded. However, it's finished. He gazed at her, taking in the intensity of her suffering. The girl who had begged for death and now wore his late wife's shawl with dignity rather than regret was the one who stood up straight despite having a twisted ankle. She said, You didn't hurt me, but I didn't mean it. I was fed by you. Permit me to sleep close to your fire, and you kept vigil over me without using your hands. A tiny crouch was set up on the stair by Chief Nuo. She won't be able to come back if you say no. Not while maintaining her honor. However, we won't come back here if you agree. We will mention your name favorably. Elias gave Sahana a peek. She didn't make a plea. She didn't cry. She did nothing except wait. He was undone by that. Not despair, but the silent dignity of a girl who stood prepared to make her own decision despite never having been selected. He moved forward, accepted the pouch, and gave the chief a single nod. Here, she is secure. Chief Nu said nothing further and got on his horse. Like ghosts who had concluded their visit, the horsemen disappeared into the blizzard. Hannah then stood. Next to Elias, her hair was lifted by the breeze. She appeared older, wiser, and more worn out at that very moment. I didn't come looking for a husband, she stated. He said, I didn't come looking for anyone. She smiled just a little. Then maybe we'll do all right. The snow finally started to melt, and the fire inside the house that had been deserted for 7 years started to burn a little brighter. Please don't scroll away if this tale touched your heart. Get more lost stories about snow, quiet, and second chances by subscribing. For example, share your belief that compassion still exists in peaceful cottages with someone who has experienced their own storm. Leave a comment below. Do you believe that love may develop silently? And keep in mind that sometimes the purest promise is the gentlest rescue.